The San Francisco Law Library is open to everyone. We offer free access to Westlaw, Lexis, Bloomberg, and other databases and can help you with reference assistance. We also have a law practice management section that covers topics on attorney wellness and quality of life. If you signed up for MCLE, there are no codes. We go by the minutes that you're shown as in attendance on the attendance report from Zoom. And we will send your certificate within 5 business days. Please save your questions for the end, including you can put them in the chat at the end. I have put the 3 materials items in the chat, and we also emailed them with the reminder email. So if you didn't get those, send us an email, let us know. Still got people to admit here. We'll open up for questions at the end, and including at the end, you can unmute yourself, right? That sounds good for you, Phil.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
but again, if you could just try to keep yourself muted during the presentation.
I got it.
Um, and so we're very happy to introduce today's topic and speaker. Here to present on outsmarting the lawyer's brain is Phil Lewis. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you, Aaron. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much to San Francisco Law Library and to Aaron for inviting me today. My name is Phil Lewis, as Aaron said. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, a relationship therapist at Integrative Psychotherapy Group in Beverly Hills. I also practiced law for many years. And I'm just going to get started. Welcome. I just said who I was. And here's a roadmap of what we're going to cover. So the brief overview, we're going to look at mental health problems in the legal profession, how normal brain functioning can feed a pattern of chronic stress that leads to, people able to hear me? Okay. How normal brain functioning feeds a pattern of chronic stress that can lead to serious mental and physical health problems, and how normal brain functioning can turn our good faith attempts to manage that stress into addiction. Sometimes it's going to include a simple overview of relevant brain functions for context. It's going to be a massive oversimplification because I'm not a neuroscientist. We're going to look at how lawyers are uniquely skilled at getting stressed out and some ideas about what you can do about it, plus some counterintuitive bonus tips to get an edge in your legal practice. And if we have time, I have a bonus video about addiction. But first, my buddy Sam's going to help along the way, so I'd like to introduce Sam.
This is Sam. Sam is an idealistic, newly minted lawyer who agreed to help us explore how the stress of practicing law can surreptitiously grow into full-blown addiction. Sam runs on a high-octane blend of naive exuberance, caffeine, and constant fear of missing a deadline. When Sam entered law school, his plan was simple: work hard and become a rich and famous Hollywood lawyer. So Sam worked very hard and graduated from a prestigious law school. 2 months ago, Sam landed a first-year associate position at a mid-sized firm in the suburbs. It wasn't the big law offer he'd hoped for, but that didn't really matter to Sam. Why? Because Sam's confident he can do whatever it takes to succeed. Master multitasking, never sleep, never make mistakes, and never let anyone see him sweat.
Okay, so let's take a look at mental health problems for the general population in the United States. At some point in their lives, nearly half of all adults will have severe enough symptoms to be clinically diagnosed with a mental disorder. Each year, about 43.8 million Americans experience some kind of challenge, mental challenge, which means that in this room, it's safe to say that virtually everyone has encountered mental health challenges, either personally or through someone they know. Now, for lawyers, the numbers are sobering. In 2024, Forbes magazine ranked law number 9 out of the 10 most unhappiest industries. One scholar dubbed law the poster child for unhappiness and lack of fulfillment. And in a survey among lawyers from 2023, about 50% felt that mental health problems were at a crisis level. So, if you believe the latest literature, modern attorneys are teetering at the edge of humanity, emotionally bankrupt, overachieving shells of their former selves, essentially the walking dead in business casual, sustained by caffeine and adrenaline. Anxiety, depression, and substance abuse are so common, they seem like part of the job description. New lawyers freak out, seasoned lawyers want out. So, compared to the general population, lawyers have greater mental distress, have a lower sense of well-being, higher rates of depression and anxiety, and even higher rates of alcohol and drug abuse. 20 to 33% of practicing attorneys can meet the criteria for problematic drinking. Early career lawyers are at highest risk for hazardous drinking. In the legal profession, suicidal ideation is 4 times the national average, which means that lawyers think about suicide 4 times more than anyone else. And unfortunately, suicide rates are among the highest. So, why should you care? Good question. 3 simple reasons. 1, it's bad for you. 2, bad for business. And 3, it's bad for the legal profession. When substance abuse goes unchecked for the individual, mental functioning gets impaired, focus, memory, concentration, attention to detail suffers, the complex mental analysis and problem-solving skills necessary for quality legal work become more challenging. In short, the lawyer brain struggles to do what it is supposed to do. Also, the increased risk of serious health problems, which then leads to increased absences and thus lower productivity. There are inevitable performance problems, more errors, missed deadlines, poor judgment. And there's also a higher discipline risk. Ethical shortcuts become more appealing to save time and offset the lost productivity. And up to 70% of lawyer discipline cases involve some addiction-related misconduct. So it's bad for business. The same problems can put employers at risk, which means a lawyer's substance abuse can quickly go from a their problem to a your problem. And the profession suffers. In a 2025 Gallup survey of honesty and ethics of professions, lawyers ranked near the bottom, near car salespeople and politicians. So here's a real life example, sad but true. So Mr. Johnson was admitted as a lawyer in 1986. He was educated at Duke, Oxford, graduated from Yale Law School, had an esteemed career path, 5 years in private practice, 10 years as an assistant United States attorney, 10 years as a U.S. magistrate judge, and 10 plus as a justice on the California Court of Appeal. So why am I calling him Mr. Johnson? Because in 2020, he was removed from the bench. After a formal evidentiary hearing with 17 days of testimony, 100 plus witnesses, 120 exhibits, the California Commission on Judicial Performance issued a 93-page published decision, ordered Johnson removed from the bench, barred him from ever serving again, and as a consequence, he was disbarred a month later. The commission found true 18 instances of prejudicial misconduct. 47 factual allegations were found true that Johnson engaged in sexual misconduct in professional settings for more than a decade, involving at least 11 people. Throughout the case were repeated allegations found true of Johnson's level of intoxication. So the commission found clear evidence that Johnson often left the courthouse at 5 p.m., went out drinking. Many hours later, came back to the courthouse. Witness descriptions, I don't need to read them out, were consistent about the justice's intoxication, including driving while apparently intoxicated. What the commission found exceptionally egregious was Johnson's behavior during the proceedings. Justice Johnson refused to admit his most serious sexual misconduct and instead maligned the victims and testified untruthfully in many circumstances. So let's take a look at the neuroscience of stress and addiction. And Sam's going to give us help with that.
Despite what some might say about lawyers, Sam is, in fact, human. Hence, he has a brain, a beautifully complex, playfully unpredictable, slightly chaotic command center powered by billions of interconnected networks. To massively oversimplify, think of Sam's brain like the 3-level law office building where Sam works. On the lowest level, atop the spinal column, sits Sam's brainstem, the oldest and most primitive part of the brain. The brainstem manages the core systems that keep Sam alive: breathing, heart rate, blood pressure. It also houses the autonomic nervous system, which, in part, functions like the brain's first responders. One level up is the limbic system, which in part houses Sam's threat detection and stress response emergency alert system. Think 911 dispatch center. When it thinks Sam's in danger, the stress response system alerts the autonomic nervous system's first responders. In the blink of an eye, Sam's body leaps into action, such as reflexively jumping out of the path of a speeding car. When activated, the stress response system surges levels of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, increases heart rate and blood pressure, and mobilizes other body systems for fight or flight. At the same time, it shuts down non-essential systems. Think digestion, growth, reproduction. So all of Sam's resources can focus on one thing: ensuring immediate survival. At the top is Sam's cortex. Again, oversimplifying, the cortex controls conscious mental activities like awareness, thinking, planning, analyzing. Basically, everything that makes Sam uniquely Sam and helps Sam do his job as a lawyer. Like all humans, Sam's brain comes with limitations. One of the biggest is that its primitive stress response system doesn't reliably distinguish between actual physical danger and imagined threats. As a result, an angry email from Sam's boss might trigger the same high-alert survival response as a car speeding at Sam in a pedestrian crosswalk. This isn't a problem when the stress response system activates briefly to deal with real physical danger. In those situations, the surge of stress hormones is naturally discharged through fight, flight, or rest. The problem arises when the stress response system is repeatedly activated by threats that are purely psychological. With such false alarms, Sam's body still prepares for fight or flight, but he never actually fights or flees. Without that natural release, stress hormone levels remain unnecessarily elevated. Over time, this repeated, prolonged activation of the body's stress response takes a serious toll. Chronic stress increases the risk of heart attack, stroke, sexual dysfunction, and accelerated aging. The cognitive and emotional costs are just as steep, fueling anxiety, depression, and anhedonia, the inability to feel joy. When stressed out, Sam understandably looks for something to make himself feel better. This brings us back to the brain for a moment. Neurons are the basic working cells of the brain. They send messages throughout Sam's body, allowing him to do everything from breathing and talking to eating, walking, and thinking. They communicate using chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. Groups of neurons that regularly communicate become wired together into neural pathways, forming networks that carry specific messages across Sam's brain. One such network is the stress response system discussed earlier. Another is the brain's reward system, with dopamine as its key neurotransmitter. The reward system's job is simple but essential. It was originally designed to identify and remember behaviors that support basic survival. So, for example, when the brain encounters something it thinks is valuable for survival, such as eating food that nourishes the body, it releases dopamine into the reward system. That dopamine makes the behavior, eating food, feel pleasurable, motivating Sam to remember and repeat the beneficial behavior in the future. Not unlike the primitive stress response system, though, the reward system has not adapted quickly enough to handle the modern flood of experiences that trigger dopamine and bring pleasure in ways that are not necessary for human survival. So, back to Sam. When stressed out, like many people, Sam reaches for simple ways to feel better right away. Not coincidentally, these quick fixes are often substances or activities that spike dopamine to artificially high levels, such as alcohol, drugs, social media, or porn. On the surface, they can seem like the perfect solution for busy lawyers like Sam, but they're not necessary for human survival, and in the long run, they cost far more than they ever save. Here's why. In the brain's reward system, pleasure and pain are processed by overlapping neural networks that function in opposition to one another. You can think of these systems like two sides of a scale, constantly adjusting to stay balanced. For example, when Sam experiences something pleasurable, dopamine is released, and the scale is tipped toward the pleasure side. To restore balance, the brain promptly adds pain to the opposite side to tip the scale back toward the center or equilibrium. This is the reward network's normal, automatic process of maintaining homeostasis. Problems arise when Sam repeatedly relies on quick fix, high dopamine triggers that are rarely related to human survival. When the scale is tipped toward pleasure too often and too far, Sam's reward network soon begins to overcorrect. Over time, Sam develops tolerance, meaning he needs more of the same quick fix to achieve the same pleasurable effect. Eventually, the scale becomes stuck, weighted down on the pain side, and even powerful dopamine triggers stop working. In this imbalanced state, Sam begins craving more quick fix, not to feel good, but simply to escape the discomfort created by the persistent dopamine deficit. Ultimately, Sam has to keep using his quick fixes just to feel normal.
Okay. So, why is it so bad for lawyers? I've come up with these 4 concepts that really resonate for me. Everyone knows a lot about it, but this interacts with that brain system that the video was talking about. So new lawyers can quickly learn that the price of admission is producing massive output of perfect work at breakneck speed, but flawless output on impossible deadlines is also treated not as exceptional, but as the minimum requirement. Constantly striving for the unattainable keeps the brain's survival system chronically activated, pumping out stress hormones that never fully get discharged. Similar stressors, bottomless billables. If you think about it, the pressure to account for every 6 minutes of every hour can feel like a high-stakes poker game. And then very frequently, the first thing that goes is taking regular breaks. But those regular breaks are crucial for peak brain functioning. And this can, as I spoke about earlier, over time, lead people to be tempted to cut corners, including creative billing, which is not good for the lawyer or the firm. Lawyers are often lack meaningful control over what work comes in, when, and how quickly it's due. At the same time, frequently every task, big or small, is treated as crucial to the client's case. As a result, the workflow can seem endless and unpredictable, again, keeping the brain on constant high alert. Without adequate recovery time, the brain is unable to fully discharge excess cortisol, and over time, the hypervigilance overwhelms a stress response system that was only designed for short bursts of physical danger, again, which escalates stress. And unique to lawyers is this lawyer as superhero. Lawyers quickly learn that in order to not be seen as weak, they must always appear intellectually superior, hyper-rational, emotionally detached, overconfident, fully prepared. It's just not realistic to be that way, since we are unfortunately human. Some enter the profession that way, with this emotional wall already in place. For others, it's built in law school. There's a great law review article talking about how law schools are training people to have unreasonable expectations of themselves and how that increases stress in a massive way. So either way, this lawyer superhero, the persona, comes at a very high cost. Over time, the emotional suppression and inauthenticity required to sustain that persona repeatedly collides with a lawyer's genuine internal human experience. And the resulting cognitive dissonance becomes its own source of chronic stress again. Okay, so quick pause for if there are any questions that came up. Does anyone have questions? If you want to raise your hand. Nothing? Okay, I will keep going. So we're going to take a look at Sam's a day in Sam's life. It is fictional. It does not represent any actual person, but I suspect that some lawyers are going to relate to at least some pieces of it.
Sam likes to be at his desk promptly at 7 a.m., eager to take on the day. He's got a big filing due first thing tomorrow, but he's not worried. His plan today is simple. Finish by the afternoon and leave early for once. He texts his girlfriend, "Dinner tonight?" Unfortunately, Sam's morning doesn't go as planned. He keeps getting interrupted, more than expected. Emails, calls, quote, quick questions. Sam isn't concerned. He sees himself as a multitasking machine. But each time he tries to start the filing, another emergency bursts through his office door as Sam frantically switches between multiple tasks. Sam finally starts drafting just before lunch. To his surprise, the writing goes slower than expected. And it doesn't feel anywhere near the firm's core standard of uncompromising excellence. Frustrated, Sam thinks, "Why is it so hard to focus today?" Followed by the usual personal pep talk. "You know you can do this. Don't settle for less than perfect." He works straight through lunch. No time for breaks. I can't cancel on my girlfriend yet again. As time slips by faster, simple decisions feel impossible. Sam starts making stupid mistakes. He finds himself revising sections he already finalized. He's embarrassed by it all. Still, he can't stop now. I'll look incompetent. No one will trust me. My career will be over before it's started. 5 minutes before dinner, Sam texts his girlfriend and cancels. He pushes aside the familiar mix of guilt and anger triggered by the text exchange. Sam finally gives up at around 2 a.m. The draft is more than enough to win the motion, but Sam is unconvinced. As Sam rushes out, the overnight assistant calls after, "Have a great night." Sam keeps going without looking up and immediately regrets it. Pissed off, exhausted, but still anxious, Sam stops at his local bar again on the way home. The drinks don't help much. He just feels less bad.
So let's unpack Sam's day and see what we can pick out of there to be helpful. The way I'm going to look at it, I'm going to look at 4 different characteristics and use this analysis to go over it. First, I'm going to look at Sam's reasonable misbeliefs under the circumstances about what he thinks his brain can do, where Sam went wrong, and what the neuroscience says about that. Consequences of what happened when Sam tried to push his brain beyond its limits and how that added unnecessary stress to his world. And then take 2, trying to work with the grain of the brain rather than against it, and what you can do differently to improve mental performance. So first, perfectionism. There is an epidemic of perfectionism. It's a common interview answer when people say, "What is your most difficult trait?" And people say, "Oh, I tend to be a perfectionist." Well, it's kind of worse than people think. So Sam assumes that to meet minimum standards, all his work must be flawless. He also believes he can achieve this by working hard enough to make everything perfect. Implied is a common belief that perfectionists make the best lawyers. So where this goes wrong, psychologist Thomas Curran says, quote, "Perfectionists, despite their enormous efforts, are no more successful than people who are not especially perfectionistic. In fact, a perfectionist mindset can undermine success. Studies consistently show that perfectionists are not more productive and over time can actually be less effective. Consequences. So what's going on? The perfectionist success paradox, which surprised me when I first heard about it. First of all, we know that human effort is finite. But pushing harder can improve results only up to a point. And beyond that point, performance then plateaus and then actually declines. So in the end, the excessive striving becomes counterproductive and a waste of time. There's also the sensitivity trap. Many perfectionists tend to take mistakes personally. As a result, when they encounter obstacles, instead of continuing to seek solutions, some tend to give up entirely. The underlying thoughts, sometimes often unconscious, you can't fail. That's something you don't try. At a minimum, the studies show that if perfectionists don't quit, for those who don't quit, many will end up investing less effort in projects once they encounter obstacles. So, how do we work with the brain? Aim for good enough. And this usually gets a lot of gasps. But the reality is people make better decisions when working toward realistic goals. You can aim for good enough, and it can produce better, faster, and more consistent results. Prioritize the job, not ego. Focus on the most important aspect of the project, completing it. People value a timely job well done more than one endlessly delayed by attempts to perfect minor details. I know I personally, when I was practicing, at one point, would be in my office struggling over writing something, and a lot of my brain power was spent on thinking about, what my boss was thinking, and what him or her wondering why I was taking so long or something like that. When actually I was doing just fine, but it was wasting brain energy to not focus on the job to be done versus the emotions that are coming up. And for me, that was a game changer, being able to just focus on, okay, whatever the other person is thinking, that's up to them. For now, the job to be done is writing this paragraph, finishing this page, polishing the brief, whatever it may be. Reframe failure. And it doesn't mean to continue just failing and be okay with it, but you have to be willing to fail because humans do fail. A single poor result doesn't define you. And you can treat setbacks as valuable data. It can help you do better on the project you're on now or the next one you're going to work on. So multitasking, this is one of my favorites. Again, it rubs people the wrong way pretty frequently. No one's going to accuse Sam of slacking. To the contrary, he's making a genuine effort to keep up with a heavy barrage of demands. He responds by trying to do several things at the same time. This makes intuitive sense to many people. And see, I was just good enough on this slide because the title came in at this point instead of in the beginning. It feels reasonable, and it does. It feels reasonable to assume that doing two things at once will take half the time. This just makes logical sense. However, the science is clear. The brain cannot efficiently perform two conscious mental activities at the same time. And this is, this isn't, you've driven to work and you forget what you were, a portion of the trip that you took. That's because that's not conscious mental activities. You've learned how to drive a car. The activities of braking and accelerating and steering has shifted off to another part of your brain that is much more automatic. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about if you're going to sit down, writing a brief, making assessments, analyzing, planning, making important decisions for clients. What looks like multitasking is actually the brain rapidly switching attention among tasks. And this task switching is inherently inefficient because ultimately it means that no single task is done well. And so you see people juggling all sorts of tasks all at the same time. The truth is, even if they're doing really well at all of it, they could be doing a heck of a lot better. And my favorite is David Rock. It's a great book. If you want to really be hacking your brain at work, I highly recommend it. David Rock, Your Brain at Work. And the studies show that the brain function of a Harvard graduate can be turned into that of an 8-year-old simply by being made to do two thought-intensive things at once. Studies have shown that. So, of course, obviously, multitasking typically leads to higher errors, lower productivity, burns up limited thinking energy. The result is constant and intense mental exhaustion, which again adds unnecessary, avoidable stress to your world. So how can we work with the grain of the brain? One way to do it is schedule time for focused thinking. Set aside blocks of uninterrupted time for high cognitive tasks, research, writing, planning, and schedule it during what you know to be your peak mental hours. For me, it's in the morning. One of the most brain-intensive activities is planning. So the idea is first thing in the morning, you list out what you're going to do during the day. Of course, it can go awry at times, but using your brain at that point, rather than trying to do things on the fly throughout the day with short bursts of using up your brain power, is a lot more efficient. Then you schedule blocks of time. So I know I work best in the morning. So when I was working on this presentation, I scheduled in the morning, time to work on it. Then cluster routine, low demand work. Put together, if you can, handle emails, calls, admin tasks in groups all at once. So instead of throughout the day checking your email, answering it every 5 minutes, unless there's some crisis going on with a client or in the firm, see if you can group them at times when, like right after you've eaten, when people tend to, have a drop in their glucose. So do that when your cognitive energy is the lowest. Offload what you can. Delegate. You don't have to do everything. Micromanaging isn't going to benefit you or anyone else. And then you can at least strategically pause when switching tasks. So if you're going to be multitasking, to the extent you can build in a little pause in between each. I don't remember the statistics specifically, but to be able to switch from one task, your brain has to switch out of the task and then has to switch into the next task. And that switch alone takes brain energy. So if you can just pause and give it a moment to switch, that can be helpful. Working past exhaustion. Sam's reasonable misbelief: when work piles up, staying late feels like the responsible move. More hours equals more work done. Makes sense? It's a common misbelief in many professions. It's where Sam went wrong. Fatigue impairs mental functioning. Executive functions most vulnerable are reasoning, planning, judgment, which includes drafting, writing, making arguments. That type of mental functioning, executive functions, require massive amounts of glucose and oxygen to perform. Without adequately recharging, your thinking brain can drain very quickly, a matter of perhaps even less than hours. So performance drops no matter how much extra effort you give it. And I remember anecdotally for myself, again, I'm struggling with a paragraph or a sentence in something I'm drafting later in the evening. And the following morning, what was taking me 20 minutes takes me 30 seconds. Is that drastic for me? So it's inefficient. You end up making more mistakes. You often end up having to redo the work, so you're doing twice the work. And my favorite metaphor is, pushing through mental fatigue is like trying to finish an important brief on a laptop with a dead battery, Freudian slip. I am a therapist. No amount of begging, caffeine, or prayer is going to let you keep using that laptop if the battery's dead. Respect your brain's battery. And the real world consequences can be serious. Let's take a look at that. Well-rested judges are more lenient. At least 2 studies say that. Study 1. Judges hearing parole cases early in the day, judges issued favorable rulings about 65% of the time. As the morning progressed, that rate plummeted to nearly 0, regardless of the facts of the case. Then, after a meal or a break, the leniency rebounded to morning levels. Second study, federal court. U.S. federal judges on the Monday following daylight savings time. So that's when you're springing forward. When people typically will lose about 40 minutes of sleep. That Monday, they found average sentences were 5% longer than on a typical Monday. So criminal attorneys, take note. How can you work with the brain? Well, work when fully charged. Don't continue working on intellectually challenging tasks when fatigue is setting in. If you can, do what I was suggesting earlier, is do things that you can do that don't require intense mental thinking. Rest before you crash. Don't wait until you crash. Give yourself a breather. Your clients, colleagues, and your bank account will thank you. Refuel. I hate the pop culture word, but I haven't come up with a better one. But self-care is a sound business strategy. Take breaks, eat regularly, stay hydrated, drink water. Efficiency, accuracy, and good judgment all need metabolic recharging. So here's a pro tip. If you must work when exhausted, skip the extra coffee. You saw the discussion about the brain's reward network. The extra coffee will stop working eventually. The body is going to press down on the pain side to offset it, and so coffee won't work. What does work is drinking water, eating a piece of fruit, replacing the glucose in your brain. But again, I'm not suggesting that you work past exhaustion too often. So then the lawyer is superhero. Sam's reasonable misbeliefs. Sam thinks suppressing his emotions at work will make him seem more competent. Where this goes wrong, suppressing emotions doesn't work in the long term. Like it or not, emotions don't simply vanish. Instead, they build up inside. Pent up emotions will eventually come out, and usually at the most inopportune time. So, how can we work with the brain? Judiciously express your feelings. Stating emotions aloud, even if you're alone, if you're really feeling frustrated or angry or sad, speaking it out loud, even if people from the outside of your car think you're crazy, speaking how you're feeling out loud can really help reduce stress. And then you can share your feelings calmly and directly with other people. It humanizes you and invites connection, and can also make you seem, the vulnerability can make you seem more persuasive um, with other people. Um, Find a way to regulate. Start being able to identify when your stress is spiking. When you get into the red zone, I tell my couples this all the time. The second the emotions start rising and you get into the red zone, the first thing that shuts off is your thinking brain, that cortex, that prefrontal area of the brain. So a pause for whatever period of time is necessary to bring you back down to earth literally gives your brain time, your thinking brain time, to come back online. And while you're doing that, notice your thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations. And sometimes just being aware, being curious, and checking out what's happening for you in your physical body, in your emotions, and your thoughts can help you pinpoint what's going on and see why the stress was spiking at that moment. And, giving you an opportunity to see what you could do differently next time. Get support. The simple act of sharing emotions with someone you trust helps balance the nervous system. If you don't feel comfortable talking to people at work, talk to your support network. And if you're really feeling stressed and need some help, get some professional help. It's the stigma around mental health and psychotherapy is hopefully starting to fade. And I've had great success with a lot of clients over time when they're just able to really explore and be curious about what's going on in the world, why it's overwhelming them so much, and to share with someone what's going on. Okay, so I threw this in. Pro tips: hacking the lawyer brain, smarter strategies for successful lawyers. And one of the keys, and this actually resonated with people previously: love what you do or change it. There are a lot of people who become lawyers because their parents did, or because they think they should, or I really wish I could find it. There was a Doonesbury article where in the first three panels, the characters were lamenting their lives. In the first two panels, this third panel, they look at each other and they say, "Law school." And then in the fourth panel, they say, "Oh God, hold me, hold me." And they're in crisis because that was their solution to their life, is going to law school. So you won't love every task, but try to love most of what you're doing. You're spending a lot of your day at work doing work. If you don't love a chunk of it, try to find a way to focus on things that you do enjoy. And if you really don't love it, think about changing it. If you simply can't leave, at least make staying in the job tolerably temporary. And what do I mean by that? Whatever your decision, you can do this with anything, not just deciding over this. Make it the result of a thoughtful decision-making process. When you come to a conclusion, you say, okay, well, I'm going to stay at this job because I have to earn money. I have to feed my family. It's not going to be forever. It gives you a sense of control which again helps to helps reduce stress. And so questions I've had, one of the major ones is, how do I know when it's time to move on? And I recommend what best-selling author and couples therapist Terry Real calls relational reckoning. I recommend this for my clients down the road. If a couple is really things just aren't working, you ask yourself, am I getting enough in this relationship or job to make grieving what I'm not getting worthwhile? Is this tolerable enough that the things that I'm not getting I can put up with? The answer is no. Then seek some help and thinking, maybe I should do something different, which I did. I was a lawyer, now I'm a therapist. So here's another idea: stress for success. And this is going to be very brief, but there's whole books on this, which is awesome. Stress actually is, the stress hormones, cortisol, dopamine, as motivators are there for a reason. And without them, we wouldn't succeed. So a reasonable amount of stress is not bad. The goal isn't to eliminate all stress, but to channel it to your own advantage, sort of like pulling on the reins of a horse, to direct it where you want it to go. You can reframe and reappraise. The likewise at the bottom again is my good enough. Making a PowerPoint. Our dominant attitudes and beliefs have a powerful effect on our life. If you can maintain a growth mindset, and I am not talking about toxic positivity, just being constantly positive is unrealistic and just doesn't match the human experience. But a growth mindset means we can thrive, we're more likely to thrive if we believe we can learn new skills to improve ourselves. We're less likely to thrive if we have a fixed mindset, the idea that our abilities are finite. You can also shift your core stress mindset. Just thinking about going from, oh my gosh, my life is always stressful and stress is always harmful, to stress can sometimes, not always, and not chronic, as I was talking about earlier, but sometimes can motivate you, can help you grow, can reframe roadblocks. Again, rather than failure, you can reframe it as a helpful directional sign, pointing you towards success, or a helpful opportunity to pause for strategic reflection. I'm not suggesting toxic positivity or being delusional, but frequently situations in our lives can be reframed and looked at differently. Okay, the power of social connection. Fun fact. Studies say that the top predictor of longevity is the quality and strength of your relationships. People who are socially connected live longer. Social connection can also increase your ability to persuade. If you sit with a colleague, a client, even an adversary, just spend a few extra moments listening. Give them your undivided attention. Be curious. Genuinely try to understand them. Ask questions. You don't have to agree with the person. You just have to listen, and you don't have to give away your trial strategy or trade secrets. There was a study about doctors who, when they spent an extra moment in the treatment room with patients, it improved patient outcomes. Just being curious about rather than dropping a diagnosis and taking off, just being curious about what their experience is with the news they're getting or what's happening to them physically. And of course, improved connection reduces stress. Engaging and connecting with other people, even your adversaries, is about enlightened self-interest. At a minimum, listening can increase this is a practical piece of it, and can increase your odds that the other person will listen closely to you. Okay, here are some helpful resources. Let me take a look at the chat. There were some questions. Nice. Aaron gave you a link to the book Your Brain at Work. Chris, we have a librarian in the house.
Uh, actually,
And
yeah, really fast. Just someone called in with a 415 number, and I don't see the last three digits of your phone number in our sign-up sheet. So if you want MCLE, please email me with the phone number you're using. Email the library. Thank you. Sorry about that.
no worries, no worries, no worries. So here are some helpful resources. So if people are struggling with mental health issues, addiction, oftentimes employers will have an employee assistance program. You can talk to your human resource department about that. For lawyers specifically, the California Bar has the California Lawyers Assistance Program, which you can reach out to with this phone number and that email address. There's also psychotherapy. You'll have my contact information on the reading list that I handed out. If I can be of assistance, let me know. There's also community support groups, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and there's a group called The Other Bar. I do work with people with addiction, and to me, one of the best benefits of the 12-step groups is mostly less as treatment and more as community. This idea of being around other people who are struggling with what you've been struggling with can be really valuable. And then we have handed out, Aaron put in the chat, my book recommendations. Breaking Addiction by Lance Dotis is awesome. If you like negotiating, getting to yes is good about communicating. Judd Brewer is a favorite of mine. Unwinding Anxiety. Terry Real just came out with a few years ago. And of course, at the end, Your Brain at Work, which is one of my favorites. Okay, and there's lots of references that are supporting this. So these are not my original ideas by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm going to stop the share and see if we have any questions.
If anyone wants us to put a question in the chat.
Sorry, I didn't know how to get off
Oh,
of mute on telephone. But just want to say thank you so much. I love the interactive elements of Sam and talking about this. My question was, I'm glad you talked about stress for success. And I was wondering, how do you discern, like, before you cross the line? Because I know it's a very hard line to discern where, a lot of the things that you talked about have made us successful lawyers, and society has praised us for these aspects. How do you know, besides like realizing you're drinking 4 to 6 drinks a week or a day, how do you know when it's going in from successful stress that it's motivating you to be productive to this is stress that is taking over your body? Because sometimes I feel like it's helping me, it's my superpower, but then I have to check in with myself, like, am I getting too tense? Is this damaging my physical body if there's no physical symptoms yet?
mhm. Well, thanks for asking the question. And I would invite you to look at your gut for one. And I know I'm not kicking the can down the road, but you get to know yourself. And one of the things is, are you using? You use the example. Are you using drinking alcohol or social media or binging Netflix or anything like that? Is that starting to distract from your world and taking over your life? A better example is checking email on your smartphone, right? And so if every 5 minutes you're checking email on your smartphone, that can, as an example to answer your question, that can be a sign not that you need to check your email, but that you're seeking out those little dopamine rushes. people who have the notifications coming from Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or all the other things. The likes, the likes are giving people dopamine hits, those short-term, high, immediate reward
Oh, thank you.
dopamine hits aren't helpful.
Mhm.
Um, um, and so that looking at how are you de-stressing, because the idea is getting stressed isn't the issue. You're going to, as a lawyer, there's going to be lots of stress going on. It can be fun and exciting, right? There's an excitement to, some people like being emergency room doctors. It's what you do after that to de-stress. So if you're just going to social media, drugs, alcohol, and those short-term fixes rather than resting, rather than a mindfulness practice. And your question is really helpful because I feel like that, I missed that in this presentation. You want to be able to be curious about your world and relax, exercise, ways of discharging the cortisol naturally, because the dopamine isn't discharging it; it's just masking it. The way coffee will mask the tiredness rather than actually help you with it. Did that help?
Yeah, thank you.
And Aaron, I'm happy to stay on and answer questions, but I don't want to keep the busy lawyers busy. We are at 1
Yeah, just
o'clock.
before anyone goes here, just really fast, the reminder that there are no codes for this, and give us a week to send you your certificate, because this has been a bit bigger audience than we usually get, and we really appreciate everyone showing up, and coming up and participating in our program. And also, yeah, if someone asked about slides, whether they'd be made available.
I'm constantly tinkering with it. If you have specific questions, feel free to email me. My
Okay.
number and email is on the reading list, and I'd be happy to send you resources.
Okay. And then, yeah, so if anyone wants to stay and either put your questions in chat or ask directly by unmuting yourself.
Hello. I don't have a question, but I did email my phone number that I'm calling in on to the email address I have
Okay.
for the public library.
Okay. Thank you.
But it was a very good talk. I just maybe one comment is I'm an attorney. I supervise people too, and the presentation I appreciate. It's kind of changed my view a little bit because, well, significantly.
That's awesome.
Because,
Thank you. Yeah, that's the greatest compliment.
Yeah, I tend to check my email every half hour, and there's really no need to, but I do that. But thank you.
Read chapter 2. I don't know that I have it on my reading list. Read chapter 2 of Dopamine Nation. That will talk. That's the balancing. That will talk you out of seeking those dopamine hits.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions before we break? I don't want to keep people. If you need to go, go. Okay, Aaron, I think we're done.
Thank you so much, Phil. Thank you everyone for joining us. I hope everyone has a really good day and take care.